Assalamualaikum guys. So today I will present you a basic principle of scintillation detector. Hey guys, what is the scintillation counter? So basically, scintillation counter is an instrument for detecting and measuring ionizing radiation by using the excitation effect of incident radiation on a scintillator material and detecting the resultant light paths. So guys, this is the block diagram for working principle of the scintillator detector. So what is the flow? So firstly, it has a atomic radiation, then enter the scintillator, then scintillator emits the photon to the photomultiplier, then photomultiplier multiply the energy of electron, then the counter is to detect the electron. It's time to me to tell you the working principle of the scintillation detector, how it works. Okay, firstly, ionizing radiation enters the scintillator and interact with the scintillator material. This causes electrons to be raised to an excited state. The excited atoms of the scintillator material decide and rapidly emit a photon in the visible light range. Then, these photons are directed at the photocathode of the photomultiplier tube, which emits the electron by the photoelectric effects. So, electrostatic acceleration of this electron takes place and an electric potential causes them to strike the first diode of the tube. So what is the impact of this electron on the first diode? So is the impact of the one electron on the diode release several secondary electrons that are accelerated to strike the second diode. So then the impact of each successive diode release an electron, so that there is an amplifying effect of each diode stage. So finally, the resulting output signal at the anode is in the form of measurable paths for each photon. So basically, what is the function of the photomultiplier? The purpose is very simple. It's simply to increase the initial photoelectrons to a very high value, so it can lead to some sort of significant current path in the electron connected to the particular system. This is how the photomultiplier works. And this is the end of the working principle of the scintillation detector. Thank you.
Now, I will explain to you about inorganic scintillators. And these are the types of inorganic scintillators, which consist of alkali halide and also other slow inorganics. The scintillation mechanism depends on the structure of the crystal lattice. In a pure inorganic crystal such as sodium iodide, electrons are only allowed to occupy selected energy bands. The forbidden band or band gap is the range of energies in which electrons can never be found in the pure crystal. In the pure crystal, absorption of energy can elevate electrons from the valence band to the conduction band, leaving gap in the valence band. The return of electron to the valence band with the emission of photon is an inefficient process. Few photons are released per decay. The energy is emitted by other mechanisms. Small amount of impurities are therefore added to the crystal. Thallium is added to sodium in trace amount. The impurities are called activators. They are create special sites in the lattice at which the band gap structure, the energy structure is modified. Sodium iodide is an organic crystal, so scintillation mechanism differs considerably from organic crystal, and these are the scintillators mechanism in sodium iodide. Sodium iodide crystal, due to the localized electron bonding, thallium, or known as the impurity, it replaces 1 in 1000 atom of sodium iodide. Sodium iodide crystal without thallium has these two bands, which is valence band and also conduction bands due to delocalized bonding. So when you add this impurity, what happens is you get this kind of electron orbital between these two bands. Higher orbital called activation center excited state, and the lower center called activation center ground state. Electron orbital produced between these two bands are basically called the activation centers. When sodium iodide crystal is kept without any radiation incident, all electrons strain the valence band and there is no electron in conduction band. However, when you place the crystal inside or in presence of some radiation, then what could happen is, for example, gamma ray photon. The gamma ray photon will impart its energy to one of the electron of crystal. This electron will gain a lot of energy and will move out the crystal, causing ionization and excitation, and it moves about. And most of the time what would happen is the acceleration that this electron would cause will impart its energy to more electron, and what will happen is those electrons would lose their energy by in the form of heat. However, some of the electrons would gain enough energy to be raised into conduction band, so they will jump into conduction band from valence band. Once they are in there, they would want to come back to the valence band because it's low energy. However, this process is quantum mechanically forbidden, so this cannot take place. When electron goes from valence band to conduction band, it leaves a hole inside the valence band. What could happen is one of the electrons from the activation center could come to the hole inside the valence band because these two have almost similar energy. The excited electron in conduction band could come to the activation center excited state because this process is quantum mechanically possible and they have almost similar energy. Once these electrons come from the conduction band to their activated center excited state, and one electron goes from the activation center ground state to the valence band, so there's a hole at the valence band and also at the conduction band. This transition from the activation center excited state to the activation center ground state is possible. Then, this electron come back to the ground state, then it would release a photon of energy corresponding to the band gap.
Are you doing good right now? So let's continue with organic scintillator. I'm going to introduce you what is organic scintillator. Organic scintillator also can be called as plastic scintillator. It consists of a transparent host material, plastic, doped with a scintillating organic molecule. For example, PO, POP, 2,5-phenylloxazolil benzene. This radiation absorbed by the host material mostly it occurs via Compton effect because of the low density and Z value of organic material. Therefore, plastic scintillators are mostly used for either detection of beta or other particles or when very large volumes are needed since their material cost is relatively low. The figure shows energy from a charged particle is absorbed and excites the electron into a variety of excited states. A transversing ionizing particle releases energy in the solvent. Then, energy flows radianless to the scintillator. Finally, light emitted by the scintillator is absorbed. There is radiative transfer and re-emit at longer wavelength by the secondary fluor. A fluor has its absorption and emission spectra shifted. The two peaks different is called Stokes shift. Fast and local energy transfer via non-radiative dipole-dipole interaction that is called Foster transfer. As you can see, high energy photon was ejected into the scintillator. In the scintillator, low energy photon has been produced. The ionization process occurs in the scintillator, whether via Compton effect, pair production, or photoelectric, but mostly in this process it occurs via Compton effect. Next, I'm going to explain to you what is photomultiplier tube. The purpose of photomultiplier tube is to convert the photon from the scintillator to become electron. We don't get enough photon from the scintillator. That's why we need to multiply it so that we could amplify the signal. The photon we get from the scintillator is quite low. That's why we need a multiplier system so that we'll get enough electron to convert into an electrical pulse. Okay, for this slide, I'm going to explain to you operation of the photomultiplier tube. The previous slide, I already briefed to you about the very high response time and also a little bit basic about the photomultiplier tube. For the disadvantages, the incident light high voltage to operate or ejected suitable for detecting infrared rays, and lastly, the magnetic field effect will produce